it just affected life. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You know, I thought I was going to come home with a nice little baby and we were going to go to all these lovely mother and baby groups, and it was far from that. I didn't want to leave the house. You know, it took us 6 weeks for me to leave the house. I never ever thought for 1 minute I'd be somebody who would get postnatal depression. It never crossed my mind.
Perinatal mental illness can happen to anybody. It is more likely in women who've had previous mental health conditions, but lots of women develop perinatal mental illnesses who have absolutely no mental health history at all.
It was really horrible not feeling an immediate bond and an immediate, this is my baby, this is lovely, because everybody around me was having that.
Everybody's heard of postnatal depression. GPs are very alert to it, health visitors and so on. What's more new, I suppose, is working with a whole range of mental health difficulties that occur in that perinatal period.
I had no motivation to do anything, you know, and I was just basically keeping her alive.
So I want new mums and their partners to really understand the importance of seeking help early and that the conditions are treatable. I'm aware that lots of mums are really concerned that if they seek help they might perhaps, you know, think that they could lose their baby or that people might think differently about them. I want to assure them that's not going to happen and that we have specialist teams available in every area of the country who would be really interested and happy to help them.
In pregnancy, I was diagnosed with preeclampsia. I got moved into high dependency and ended up with an emergency C-section. The midwife came around and showed her to us quickly, just kind of held her up basically, so we knew she was a girl. But then they took her away, pretty much straight away, and that scared the life out of me. I hated it. I didn't see her again for a really long time. I didn't hold her, I didn't touch her, I didn't smell her. She wasn't in the room with me, and I just remember lying on that table and not being able to move. And when I did see her, it was back in a different room in high dependency. For a long time, I think I thought, is that my baby? I just couldn't let go of the fact that I hadn't seen her come out. I hadn't held her straight away, and it really stuck with me, and I kept playing it over in my head.
Birth trauma arises when a woman has a very traumatic birth experience, and that experience can be objectively traumatic, where medically people would understand and recognise that she's had a difficult birth. It can also be a subjective experience where the birth may well have been straightforward on paper, but the woman's experience was one of feeling very horrified or trapped and helpless in the birth experience.
So one of the symptoms I think I've had since having a traumatic birth is that I still sometimes relive bits of what happened to me. I relive those moments of feeling trapped or feeling out of control and not being able to move. Having that really medical birth has made me more anxious about hospital stuff. Any other care that I've needed from then onwards, I've requested to be in a different hospital because I really don't want to go back to the one that I gave birth in. I think I also, for a long time, struggled with big groups. I knew that other people would, as naturally as you would do, talk about their birth experiences, and I really didn't want to have to go through mine. I blamed myself for loads of things, like she wasn't sleeping, it must be my fault. I struggled with feeding for a really long time and I blamed myself for that. I blamed myself for the fact that I had preeclampsia because I have in the past suffered from some anxiety, so I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm naturally a little bit anxious, that's why I got preeclampsia, so therefore it was my fault. I hate to say it out loud, but I was suicidal at one point. The thought of doing that now, it's horrible. Like, why would anybody do that? But at the time, it felt like the only option. It terrifies me to think what had happened if I hadn't gone to the mental health team, if I hadn't had that support. It gave me a chance to enjoy my daughter, because I think until I started to process what had happened, I couldn't enjoy her because I was just so stressed all the time. They let me enjoy my baby and my child, which I'm very, very grateful for.
My experience of postnatal depression was how hopeless life could be, I suppose. I thought it would be the happiest year of my life, and it really wasn't. It was horrendous.
Women will feel very low and sad, perhaps struggle to bond with their baby. They might be very tearful. They might struggle to leave the house.
I'd wake up in the morning and I would wonder how I was going to get through the day.
And I would sit there and I would think, I've got this whole day ahead of me and it's just going to be miserable and I'm going to feel miserable. I wanted to be that mum who made all of the meals from scratch and breastfed her baby perfectly and went to every baby class there was and interacted with them constantly. That's what I wanted to be. But it was unachievable and I was aiming for something that was totally unachievable anyway. I would get up and go out to these classes and put on a smile and pretend everything was okay, but inside I was literally falling apart. I started to feel, what's the point in being here, because I'm just going to feel the same tomorrow. And when I'd go to bed, I'd start lying in bed thinking, I hope I don't wake up tomorrow, because what's the point? I would just hope I wouldn't. So I told the psychologist that I was having thoughts of wanting to end my life. And at that point she called the crisis team to ask them to intervene. With the extra support in place, things did start to look up then. It was a slow journey, but they did. If I hadn't had support from the perinatal mental health team, it does scare me that I wouldn't be here anymore. Mainly because if I hadn't had their help, I don't know how I'd ever have seen that light.
I noticed she'd been a bit quiet, struggling to cope with things, looked a bit troubled. Her energy level seemed a bit low. Little things really that you could probably miss if you're not careful.
There were some days I couldn't do mundane things like putting the washing away without, with even playing about with it, and it just that was it. That was a bad day. And another day I couldn't, Christmas time, couldn't go to my parents for a family Christmas.
Seeing Liz change and starting to struggle was difficult. One, I couldn't really do much about it. Two, trying to understand it. And then three, obviously it puts more onto me to try and support her so that things are carrying on as normal.
It can be very difficult for partners living with a woman who has a perinatal mental illness, and then it's really important that they are also seeking support for themselves. Typically that would be via their own support networks of family and friends. If their own mental health starts to suffer, then they can access support themselves via their GP, who can refer them to appropriate services.
You just don't know what to say or do on any given day. What might work on one day to help things might not work on another day. So that adds extra pressure and stress, because some days you get your head bitten off, other days you get a hug. And then you don't know whether you're coming or going. So to try and put that to one side and think, well, that's not really Liz, is difficult at the time. I can only say that communication is more important, the support through the GP, psychiatrist. If there's one bit of advice, then if you're in any doubt, ask someone, a professional.
I didn't feel like I was able to switch off. I felt like I was on alert all the time. I would worry about things happening. So I'd be carrying Morgan downstairs and I'd fall, or that we'd take her to the park and Megan would fall off something or hurt herself. It was very much to do with them hurting themselves or something happening to them that would hurt them. At night time, I would very often be awake between feeds. My brain would be on wake up, I guess. It would be churning over whatever I thought I needed to worry about at that moment. It didn't seem to matter what was going through my head, but my brain would not switch off.
Postnatal anxiety can be very intense, and it's not something that can be easily reduced with reassurance. Women will experience it to a very high level, and they'll typically need some support to reduce the levels of anxiety that they're experiencing.
I'm grateful that I got the skills and the support and help from the perinatal mental health team to be able to enjoy my children.
It was a pretty horrendous birth. Forceps delivery, episiotomy. It wasn't the fantastic, wonderful birth everyone said it would be. It was just very much not what I expected and took its toll.
Bonding difficulties can be really difficult for new mums to talk about, but we do know that only 40% of new mothers fall in love with their babies straight away.
We came home and I found myself not bonding with her because I was in too much pain. I was still trying to process what just happened. I was just emotional, like I'd lock myself in the bathroom and just cry. For me it was just awful. I was just, why can't I be normal? You know, why can't I feel the way everyone else does about their having their baby and be happy?
We know that they can feel not in love with their baby, they can feel actively resentful towards their baby, and that can be a really difficult thing for new mothers to experience.
I just felt so disconnected from her. I just didn't have space in my head to have her there. I felt like I needed to take a break. I needed to stop time, sort myself out, and then I could be like a mum to Tilly, but because I felt like I couldn't do that. It really, really hit me. I really struggled to bond with her. I loved her so much, but I just wanted to leave. You know, I'd get up at 3 in the morning with my partner and say, I can't do this. I can't be here. I love her, but I can't be what she needs. So for me, like, running away was probably like going to be the easiest thing to do, and you know, she'd be better off just with her dad because you just don't think you're good enough. I think I'd still be crying in the bathroom if I hadn't had any help. Still probably struggling to like bond with my little one. I just needed that help to know I wasn't mad, that I wasn't crazy. And without that, I think I probably still would have been back where I was 6 months ago. So what I would say to other women who are experiencing what I've experienced is to go and see your GP, or you know, get a referral to the Perinatal mental health team, even use a birth listening service at the hospital. But don't sit at home. Don't sit at home and wait. Don't fear that they're going to take your child away from you, you know, because they're not. There's a lot of people out there, and a lot of people want to help.
All of the conditions that we've talked about are very, very treatable, and a number of those conditions do have impacts on the baby that can be reduced or removed if women seek help early enough.
I want mothers to learn from my experience that mainly to be aware that they can suffer, that more people than you realise suffer, that you're not alone, and if you need the support, it's there, so please use it.
There are specialist services in every area of the country, and women can access these services through their key health professionals such as GPs, health visitors and midwives. Please don't wait.